Hello you guys, this is Dustin Sellers and today I am back with another video and I hope you guys are ready. I am going to speed up on my content a little bit just because I have a lot of things to do today. I hope all is well and I hope you're enjoying your day. We're going to go into a little bit more about plants. I don't think we went into plants last time. I think it was kind of bacteria, archaea, kingdoms and whatnot. Today we're going into plants and we're going to talk a little bit more about plants. Kickstart kicks your day and it will get you started. If you're not started, get you a kickstart so you can start your day. And here we go. So basically, I'm gonna be honest. To understand a plant, you must understand the environment around the plant. Without understanding the environment around the plant, then you really don't have an understanding of that plant. For example, you can have plants that are very similar as far as their biological needs and as far as their biological appearance. Bingo, I like that word. With that being said, an example, you can have green algae. Green algae is similar to some plants that live on land. That is amazing. That is science. I love it. Let's go on. Okay. Before we go into how they reproduce, how the non-vascular plants reproduce, because that's what we're talking about. I'm going to give you the non-vascular plants first. We're going to be focusing on liverworts, we're going to be focusing on hornworts, and we're going to be focusing on mosses. With that being said, I am going to explain how all of these things reproduce. They reproduce all in a general way. So I'm going to introduce the general way, and then I'm going to go into detail more about the liverworts, the hornworts, and the moths. Bingo. So, excuse me. Apologies. But here we go. So, with these three non-vascular plants, we basically have two parts to these two plants, right? So one gives rise to the other. That's how I think about it. So a gametophyte. The gametophyte is basically the dominant. It's dominant. It's the dominant. So it's mainly dominant. It's dominant over the saprophyte. Saprophyte. Sporophyte. There we go. Sporophyte. And the sporophyte is also multinuclear and is dependent on the gametophyte. So without the saprophyte, without the gametophyte, the sporophyte would not exist because the sporophyte receives nutrients from the gametophyte. With that being said, whenever we talk about plants, majority of the time we talk about plants, we're talking about vascular plants. Vascular plants are risen from non-vascular plants. I mean, that's that simple. The way that this happened is that once the gametophyte goes through asexual reproduction, which calls for sperm and eggs, and then it gives rise to the sporophytes. The sporophytes then goes into the wind, and then once they go into the wind, they either climb to trees or they find soil, and then they're allowed to become a tree, things of that nature. So that's how that happens. But yeah, that's the main way of how it happens. So like I said before, the gametophyte is the dominant generation, and it is nutritionally independent, so it feeds itself. But this sporophytes depend on the gametophyte to feed it, so it can get its nutrition and do the things that it needs to do to become big and strong. Because that's what you want to be if you're alive at all, is to be strong, big, with everything you do. Big on life. All right. Yeah. Let me think. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a little bit more information in relations to how these things actually work. So, the male and the female, a gametophyte, they they basically are in sexual reproduction, and you have a male and a female. They come together to create a haploid. With them creating that haploid, it goes through a series of steps to actually create that haploid. Without water, this process would not happen. Um, but basically, the male sperm goes through mitosis, and this happens in and not in the archegonia. The archegonia is what happens in the female. That's the egg, and it goes through mitosis in the female. But I forgot the N3dia, I think that's what it's called. But both of those things, but the archegonia and the N3dia, that's where both the reproduction happens for, or the mitosis happens for the male sperm and the egg for the female. When they come together through the process with water, without water, it cannot happen. Then it creates a diploid zygote, then mitosis, then it creates a saprophyte, then it goes up and creates the spores, and the spores is carried throughout the air. That's that's the general way of how they travel and how they reproduce. Um, liverworts, liverworts. So they actually kind of, they don't, it don't look like a liver. They look like a liver. But when it comes to the liverwort, the liverworts has basically two forms of gametophytes. You have a leafy form and you have a thallus form. The leafy form looks like a Christmas tree, and it's amazing. I like the way it looks. The thallus kind of looks more just like a leaf. It's like a leaf. It looks like it reminds me of a four-leaf clover. That's what I think about when I look at thallus. And they're different. So these two things they're different. But I think that's the main way that I would find how or describe them being different as far as the liverworts. One of the main reasons. I'm gonna keep going. Okay, the hornworts. We're gonna describe how they look. So they are basically, they have cells. So they have cells present inside of them, and the gametophyte, they are very similar to the liverwort gametophyte. And then they also have these things called prenoids, which produce and store nutrients while creating a rich CO2 environment. We need carbon dioxide to live. Without it, it'd be very, very tough to live without carbon dioxide. It's interesting. Yeah. Okay. And then it also has stomata. The stomata primary role is basically facilitating saprophyte dissociation, and that is very essential. I'm not sure what that means. The word dissociation, I'm not sure what that means, but I will find out. Yeah, we're gonna keep going. So the hornwort sporophyte, the hornwort sporophyte, you can find it in between tissues that produce spores and pseudolayers. Yeah, I really don't feel like that's that interesting. Good to know. But the purpose of those are to basically twist to help nearby spores disperse their spores. Yeah. Mosses. So for the mosses, The gametophytes has a stem-like axis with spirally arranged leaves, which are known as phylls. Mosses attach their substrate with multicellular rhizoids. Okay, didn't know that. The stem is complex. That would make sense. Had to be complex. So they also have water conducting cells called hydroids and nutrient cells called leptoids. And then the leaves typically, I did not know moss has leaves. That is interesting. Oh my God. And I've been fishing for a long time. And I don't know what I really thought it was, to be honest with you. I don't know what but the leaves typically arise from the side of the stem. That makes sense. Exhibiting a spiral pattern. That does make sense. Cause okay, yeah, that's dope. That's dope. I like that. Alrighty, we're gonna stop there. Now we're going to go to the next PowerPoint. This PowerPoint here is more so based on vascular plants. So, vascular plants in early evolution, everything has to evolve. So they had to develop internal conducting tissue to be able to stay alive, because without the internal connection tissue, then how would it feed itself? Then true leaves appeared. So they actually have real leaves, and then they also gain roots that function, that helps absorption, and then the archegonia developed, and then we have, I think that's archegonia developed, I think, and then the gametophytes became smaller over time. Therefore, which means that the sporophytes are able to live by themselves, I believe. Some of the plants that we're going to cover are the philosopher, the lycophylla, the isquitophylla, and the Pyophyta plant. And so the Philosophia plants, they do not have true leaves nor true roots. The Lycota plants have microphyls. They're covered with microphyls. And these are basically leaves with single pines. Stuff. I like leaves. The sporophyte. The sporophyte continues to basically reproduce itself due to the fact that it's already a diploid cell. So it continues to continues and ends up going through the same cycle to create gametophytes. So they're already sporophytes, but they continue to grow to create gametophytes to continue this cycle. So the life cycle is kind of similar to the life cycle that we just basically went over not too long ago. We have two living type of mosses that live land, spike mosses. We have the Lycopodium and the Sigilla. The sporophytes have microphyls, and they have roots and stems, what the steam. And then the roots, they develop along the chromosomes. I already talked about Archegonia and Arthurandina, and those are the main. That's the same way how they fertilize on trees through the Archegonia and the Antheridia. Um, Spores grow independent of the gametophytes. You know that. I really watch these videos. Go back over. I need to be detailed. So with the Esquizotophyta, the sporophytes have ribbon-containing cilia, and they also have world scale-like microphylls that lack chlorophylls. With the Polydiphylia, I believe, the sporophytes have megaphylls that are often large, excuse me, and much divided. Then we have megaphylls. Oh, I already talked about megaphylls. This kickstart, man, I don't know if it's good or not, man. Like, yeah, has me feeling kind of funny. These plants have stems. Know that. They have stems other than the other plants, the non-vascular plants. The Esquicium reproduction is an asexual by fragment of ribosomes, so it reproduces asexually, and then it also has sexual reproduction that is connected to spraganophores, and that helps with creating new children for the Esquicium. The ferns. The ferns' leaves are megaphylls, and they're referred to as the fronds. And they are typically divided into smaller segments, and they require water for reproduction. The general anatomy of them, they are coiled up like this. Crozier, that's what they curled up in. And then the curls on them, they have little curls like sticking out on them, and those are known as the pinnae. And as it grows, the pinnae grows out and then turns into a leaf. They reproduce by using sore, which may be protected by indicia. And basically, I believe these sores have spores that are inside them, and whenever they open, they release the spores, and then the spores spread everywhere, and then creates more plants. And that is where we're gonna stop for this one. I think. Okay, no, I think this is important. Reproduction life cycle. Meiosis forms spores in Sporogonia. Spores release and grow into gametophytes called portalia. Similar portalias. Now it's still kind of the same thing as the last one we just went over. The same cycle. All of these kind of have the same cycle. Except they go from a zygote to a gametophyte to a young sporophyte, then a sporophyte. And after the sporophyte, the leaves are still they still have like the little spores on them, and then they burst open and go wherever they like. But a portion of the gametophytes die. They go through that. Last but not least, week 7. That's the one I just went over. This is the right one. Last one. Here we're actually going to be talking about more plants, my friend. The dominance of seed plants, they they just became dominant over time. Like at first, they wasn't dominant until environmental changes occurred. Then, after environmental changes, this allowed us to create more plants, making it kind of dominant, or majority dominant. Um, evolution of the seed. Evolution of the seed. Okay, so gametophytes are dominant in bryophytes, which are things such as the non-vascular plants that we was talking about. Um, the saprophytes are dominant in periphytes, but they're gametophyte independent. They can be gametophyte independent. Then we have um, sapphires being dominant in seed plants, and then gametophyte dependent upon the sapphire and seeded. That's crazy. Um, without water being present, a saprophyte would not be able to do what it needs to do to be able to reproduce and do the things that it needs to do. So a saprophyte is essential, well, water is essential to a saprophyte in creating the things that it needs. An ovule consists of, hold on, wait. Okay, so the ovule is basically the main part of where everything happens, and this is where the eggs are produced, and the eggs are produced and is also fertilized into a sapphire embryo, and then helps develop this embryo into a seed. So that's where majority of it happens. The advantage of seeds versus spores. The seeds do not need water. They can live anywhere, and they're protected by seed coat. Excuse me. Excuse me. And it's provided food sources for the embryo. So it provides food and sources for the embryo, and then it disperses in various ways. The spores, they need water for reproduction. They mostly live near water. No protection, nothing protects them. New food. Plant must make food on its own. New plant must make food on. Oh yeah, so they must make food on their own, and it must grow wherever it lands. That's crazy. That is right. So the spore can't really go nowhere. It's sad. I hate to be a spore. Now we're down into the genotherms. The genotherms are genotherms. They develop on the surface of specialized leaves called sporulus. Sporulus. Genotherms. The genosperms we're going to be talking about are conifers, and they're bless me, conifers. There are okay. So conifers are basically whenever you have a gametophyte male and female from different types of spores binding to one another, creating different things. Each tree usually has both types of cones. Pollen cones produce microspores that develop into male gametes, pollen grains. Larger megaspores, they develop into female gametophytes. It takes a little time for that. How this works. So basically, I believe it's still kind of the same as far as last time. After the seeding, that creates the pollen cone, and then it creates mitosis, and then after undergoing mitosis, the ovocone, meiosis, fertilization. It undergoes meiosis, goes into fertilization. That was kind of tricky. I gotta go back on those. I really don't understand that part. This is kind of new. Went over this today. Angiosperms. So we have angiosperms. With angiosperms, you have two different evolutionary paths. You have the monocots and the diocots. The monocots are leaves with parallel veins, and then we have diocots, which are net-like ventilation, which includes like rose, peas, sunflowers, oaks, and maples, things of that nature. So the main things that we know. The difference between monocots and diocots, the monocots have one clidelline, and then the diocots have two cotyledons, and then the stems, the embryo. Oh, okay. So the embryos are different. The embryo has two. For the diocots, they have two cotyledons, and then the monocots, they have one cotyledon, and then the stems within the monocots, they're kind of everywhere, so they're complexly rearranged. And then in the diocots, they're kind of more so like a ring. On side of the plant, on a plant, the way that they reproduce from the stamen and the carpel. The carpel is the female. It has three parts: the stigma, the style, and the ovary. And then the stamen is the man. It has the anther and the filament. Pistil is the reproductive portion of the female. The pollen grain lands on the stigma, and then it goes into the ovary. It goes into the pollen tube, and then it allows it to grow. Two haploid cells of pollen grain are called generative cells in the tube cell. Pollen tube grows from pollen grain. Oh, so the pollen tube grows from the pollen grain. As pollen tube grows towards ovule, nucleus of whenever you have a mature male gametophyte, you will realize that the pollen tube containing two sperms. That's how you will understand when it is a mature gametophyte. The pollen tube will continue to grow. Always continue to grow. I believe it will continue to grow afterwards. But after it undergoes everything, the tissue develops into an endosperm and the embryo. And yeah, we're going to stop there. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.